Hello， 我是 Coach Tim， 欢迎收看 Pleroma Coaching 健康全方位，一起探讨饮食、运动、修复、大脑健康跟心灵健康。This is Coach Tim. Thank you for watching Pleroma Coaching's Total Health, Spirit, Mind, and Body, where we explore nutrition, exercise, recovery, brain health, and spiritual health. So today, Rick, thank you for coming, and we've been friends for a while, and you are really into health and exercise, and I've been learning a lot from you. So I'm glad that we can have some time to kind of dive deeper into your approach to health today. So maybe we can start by having you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you have done, especially in sports and so forth.
Okay, well, thanks, Tim. Glad to be here. As far as sport, it started quite early. In junior high, we had a group of us decided to put a little track team together. It wasn't really part of the school event, but we had a good time in setting up. We had long jumps and we had a sprint and things like that. And I ended up really enjoying running, so that when I got into high school, I decided to join the cross-country team. And this is back in the mid-'70s, which was pretty big running craze at the time, and in Southern California, San Diego County. So I became a runner. And it was a lot of fun, actually, because a lot of the running we did was off the roads, was on trails or dirt roads, which was really nice. And same with a lot of the competitions were that way. So I ran throughout high school, and when I got into college, I continued to run. But I started having some knee issues. And the coach said, okay, stop running. You need to be on a stationary bike in the gym. And so here I am in the gym, skinny runner, and I'm in the gym with all these football players, and I'm on this little stationary bike, and I said, this is really no fun. So I was able to borrow a bicycle from a friend. We had taken this trip, and somehow he was in trouble with his parents, and we had to cancel it, so I had to borrow his bicycle, and I had to ride it from Squaw Valley back down into Sacramento area, is
that's a long ways.
Okay. Yeah, it had to go over Donner Pass and down through the foothills, and it was such fun that from that point forward, I pretty much stopped running and became a cyclist at that point. And in fact, I probably rode more than I should have. I should have been studying more than riding. So that kind of got my start in Northern California, and I started joining USCF racing series in Northern California. And I was able to get on some pretty decent teams and go through the ranks. Any money I could save up went to tires and food. So that really, from that point forward, and we're talking about the mid-'80s, from that point forward, I've always been a cyclist. I did dabble in a few triathlons, but really my strength has always just been in cycling.
And you've been in Taiwan for a while, and what kind of cycling or even racing have you done?
So I had some experience in the bike industry, so I kind of knew that there was some support for cycling in Taiwan. And so, of course, when I got here, before moving here in Taiwan, I actually sold everything and kind of started over and bought a new bike here. And just amazing place to ride. And meeting people, I met, he was an owner of a bike shop, Tim Gao, who was raced all the national series races, had a Team Fuji here. And so I started riding and training with him, and then I got the bug to start racing again. And so we actually put together a racing team, Chinelli Ritchie racing team, where we did all the national series races here in Taiwan, which was a great way to learn about Taiwan as well, because there's races in the north and the south and the coast and the mountains. It was great because I was able to bring my family along, and it was this really good experience riding bikes and racing again here in Taiwan.
Yeah, and then you're steep in the cycling industry as well.
Right. From years back in California, I was a sales rep for bicycle companies, and then moving to Taiwan. Taiwan is really the center of the bicycle industry, so I have worked for several companies in different categories of cycling, from commuters to racing bikes and components, and now future in e-bikes. So
that's a whole range now.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty much been my life for a few decades, actually.
Yeah, so obviously cycling has played a huge part in your personal development, your growth, health, but then you also took an interest in, I guess, looking at whole training approach and maybe even nutritional approach differently. So we've been talking a lot about that kind of ideas and different approaches personally. So yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what kind of brought about your mindset change or your approach change.
Well, I have to say that even though I enjoyed the racing, most of the time when I wasn't training or racing, I was quite fatigued. So I would go through life either being hungry or tired. I'd have to go to bed early, and quite often I kind of fought this fatigue. And that's what a lot of training is like as well. You're pretty much always holding a relatively high level of fatigue in order to push your body to the point of higher performance. And so I found that it wasn't always beneficial to my health in that sense. Sometimes you can overdo. And I started doing more research on it, and more and more information started pointing to, as we know, the gentleman Mark Sisson, and did a lot of reading about him, and he has a great podcast and website and the like about how the term chronic cardio came up for me, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yes, okay, yes. I see now. So from that point forward, I've been I'm still a cyclist, I still enjoy being on the bike, but now I have a more balanced way of training and living and eating, to where now my attitude is much better. I'm actually healthier than I used to be. I'm not necessarily as race fit all the time, but if there's an event that I want to do, there may be one or two events throughout the year that I would target that I want to be fit for, then I can plan training for that. I can bring the training up for that peak performance, and then I can bring it back down. And so it's not this chronic condition that I'm trying to keep this performance attitude for 6 to 9 months or something. So I found better ways to train to peak and recover, and so I've slowly been incorporating that in with everything that I do.
Yeah, that kind of traditional approach of constant stress and a high level of chronic fatigue and inflammation, and that cannot be good long term, right? It's we are mentally, physically, we just can't last like that.
We weren't actually made for that.
So then how do you approach your training? Because you mentioned that you have this, I guess, period of ramping up and period of recovery. Maybe you can talk about, I know that a few years ago you did a KOM, which is a pretty well-known cycling race. It's in Taiwan, to the highest peak in Taiwan. Yeah, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about your experience there.
It's an event that's lasts anywhere from 3.5 to 5 hours, and it goes up to over 3,000 meters of climbing, high altitude. You can do it really slow, or if you're a competitor, you tend to want to ride it fast and do well in a race. So a lot of people don't prepare properly for that, and halfway, 2/3 of the way through, they're really fading or they haven't done things properly necessarily. And again, with my new attitude of trying to avoid chronic cardio, most of my training I did indoors, and I did it all interval based, and at the time I did it all power meter based. So when you're collecting power and you're using something like Training Peaks, you can see basically how your fitness curve is going up, and you can see how your training stress is, and your everyday, each day training load. So there's kind of like 3 lines that you're looking at. And the one line that continues to keep going up is typically your stress, your fatigue line.
Yeah.
And so you're always balancing this fatigue line.
Yeah.
But you're also trying to make sure that you have this performance capability for that length of an event. So it's really kind of tricky in that sense. So again, I pretty much only did one training ride a week outside on the road, and I did that usually at a high altitude climb. And so I really targeted this training only for maybe, I think I only trained for maybe 8 weeks.
Wow.
So that I would peak at a certain point and then I could come back down after the event.
Yeah.
And it actually worked out very well for me. The day of the event, everything went perfect. It wasn't too hot. The way that I train, as well as I don't train on high carbohydrates, I tend to train to where I don't dip into that very often, and I can train on more fat burning. And so I always, and you can do this by regulating what your power and heart rate is, and with kind of modern instrumentation, you can see that as you're actually riding or as you're training.
Yeah.
So I was able to keep my energy levels quite good for the whole event, and I didn't really eat very much. The only thing I brought that I eat, I'm a big fan of black sesame, and I had these like black sesame squares where it's kind of a real fatty seed, but it tastes really good. It's very satisfying, and I ate maybe 4 or 5 of those only for the whole race.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah. And how did you do on that race?
Well, I won. I was in the over 50 category, so I won my category. And if you compared in the age groups, I would have been the second 40-year-old, and I think maybe the fourth 30-year-old, and I got 50th overall, and that includes. There were many professionals. There were a few national racing teams there. So among the amateurs, I did relatively well.
Yeah, so it sounds like that particular training, your approach, both in terms of how you develop yourself physically as well as nutritionally, were very different. So maybe you can highlight for us, maybe just first with your physical training approach. I think you mentioned some of it already. Maybe you can share with us what were some of the most significant changes from your past training approach?
Yeah, well, it's changed a lot. And even from that event, of the KOM event, I've even become, now I don't know if I would train again for a KOM at this point, because I've become even more well-rounded of fitness and less fatigue. So instead of balancing this high semi-acceptable fatigue, I actually try and recover completely from fatigue and not carry too much fatigue at any time. So I still do indoor and I still do a lot of intervals, but my intervals are even more max, like higher effort, but shorter time spent, and full recovery between intervals. So instead of going up high and then coming half down and high again, I actually come down for a complete recovery before I do another super high interval. And it's the quality of interval is something that's very important to me. Like in the past when I was doing the KOM, my intervals would slowly fade. I was still getting a decent workout from the last few intervals, but they weren't quite as good as the first half of the intervals.
I see.
But now I train and I want to make sure that each time I do an interval, I'm getting the full maximum performance training out of that. If I can't do it then I need to stop, and then it's time to recover.
Yeah.
So that's the difference, kind of what's happening right now. There's the HIIT, high interval training. Now they're changing that to HIRT, which means that it has to be repeatable, which means that you actually do need to hit the same level each time. And if you can't do it, then just don't. You need to stop. And then maybe after you recover from this, maybe the next, a couple of days later when you do that workout again, you're able to then maintain it a little bit longer. So it's about it's about quantity. I mean, quality over quantity.
Yes.
So I've become more and more in that direction. I'm also doing I'm not doing many workouts which I would call kind of in the middle. So I do long, slow type exercises, or I do heavy or super fast exercises. Everything in between, I kind of stay away from. So I do a lot of walking. I do a lot of kind of active walking. And then I do a lot of high intensity intervals. And I'll take as many days as necessary to recover before doing that again, so that I'm getting the quality rather than the quantity.
Makes sense. You don't want to be in that not too strong, not too easy kind of, they call it the black hole training, where you're just exerting yourself but then not getting the benefit. That makes sense. Then what about nutritionally? Then what adaptations or changes have you made in terms of your nutritional approach?
I've really learned a lot going through the Primal Blueprint program and readings from Marxists, and so really that's the lifestyle I lead, which is very minimal carbohydrates. If I do eat carbohydrates, they're highly nutritional, typically vegetable based, with good vitamins and fiber and the like. I eat quite a lot of protein, and it's a combination. I know that carnivore diet is something that athletes can actually perform on. I've not done that completely, but I do kind of a combination where I will eat mainly meats or high-fat dairy products, butter and ghee, and of course olive oils and coconut oil wherever possible. And very few, I've pretty much cut out all grain-based foods at this point, except when it's a treat, or except when I don't want to be such an outcast, especially with my family. It's like, we'll do a family event and you've got a birthday cake. Of course, I'm going to have a slice of birthday cake. I'm not. It's not like I'm completely. And I don't really notice anything because I'm on such a pattern that it comes in and it goes out. If I were to eat a piece of cake every day, then maybe that would be, I would start feeling the effects of that, after maybe, a week or 10 days, all of a sudden it's like, oh no. So I eat a lot of seeds and nuts, high fat, like I said, we make our own yogurt at home, beef and pork, not as much poultry, but occasionally I love a good roasted chicken. And then Taiwan, of course, is just kind of the land of amazing vegetables. And very delicious and nutritious. And so every day, every meal, we've got lots of vegetables. So I do fast periodically. I do more intermittent fasting where I'll do more of a compressed eating window. But really, I don't have any real issues. I can eat when I want to eat. If I want to have 3 meals in the day, it doesn't really make much difference to me. Or if I'm not hungry, I just don't eat. I won't eat until dinner time. So it's not like I have this set pattern. I just kind of naturally eat or don't eat. and it's never really a problem for me, and so I don't have to worry about it too much. I just make sure that the food that I have access to is nutritional food, and it's food that I would enjoy cooking and eating, and also trying to make it enticing to my family as well.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest challenge I have is kind of converting what we do in the household.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of the fun challenge.
Yeah.
And I have to be really patient and just kind of spoon feed that.
Yeah, and also by example, right? Just they watch you. The kids watch what you eat.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's a little strange. I'm on a real black sesame kick for the last few months. So I buy these big bags of black sesame and make paste out of it, and it goes with so many different foods. So metabolically, you're very healthy, very very flexible. So even once in a while with a cake and stuff, it's not gonna impact you too much. Even like summertime, kids are home a lot right now, and so I'm trying to make food that they might like, which sometimes you have to sort of hide it. So I'll make something that's more vegetable based or higher protein or higher fats, and I put it between 2 slices of bread. So they're getting the bread, but actually it's not a high dose of carbohydrate. It's not like them drinking sodas or cakes or things like that. So they feel like they're getting something they like, and there's good delicious fat inside, so it makes it like there's slices of bacon in it and avocado and tomato. It's just like, and it's a sandwich, and they'll eat it. But if I had served that separately in some other way, maybe they wouldn't want to eat it. So you have to be somewhat creative in that sense.
Yeah, and for many, whether probably mostly amateur athletes, who are trying to also thinking about figure out how do we do nutrition when we are, let's say, doing a longer course, cycling event or triathlon or something like that. So how do you approach your racing, training, nutrition?
Yeah, that's a somewhat sensitive topic because not all people leading up to an event have trained well enough to where they are adaptive to different energy usage. Usage. So for me, I don't have to worry too much about performances, and that I don't worry about carbo loading or carrying too much food because I typically have enough accessible energy through my fat stores, and the way that I've trained, I've slowly trained with a slow heart rate to where my body adapts to where that I can increase my efforts and still maintain a lower heart rate. And so I'm actually performing relatively well, but I'm still utilizing very little energy for my performance. So I don't worry about it. I don't bonk anymore like I did in old days. I don't have to carry a whole bunch of food in my pockets, bananas and stuff like that. So like I said, I would just, if I ever have to stop for food, I would get something that's typically high profile. I know protein, we would sometimes stop and we would get like eggs.
That's right.
So it's not really very high in carbohydrates, but it does fill your stomach, and you can still utilize some of that as energy. So I would say somebody that is training for an event, that you need to become as fat adapted as an energy source as possible. And the way to do that is through your training, really, through your diet and your training, that you're not training it at too high of a level to where you dip into needing carbohydrates. So you're just utilizing fat stores as your energy source during your training. And how you can tell to do that quite often is through heart rate. So I will train at certain heart rates for long periods of time, and my body adapts, and I can slowly increase my actual efforts with my heart rates low. So that's kind of half of what I do, maybe even less than half. The majority of the work that I do now is high intensity and very short efforts. So I will do actual maximum efforts on my bike as if sprint exercises. I will do them. I will do like 7 repetitions with complete recovery between them. But I do a max effort, which lasts maybe 20, 30 seconds. So I'm really pushing my body to its maximum effort, and my heart doesn't actually know what's going on until it's too late. In a way, you know, it's actually I hit the go button, and the heart slowly my effort is here, and the heart slowly ramps up, and by the time I'm done with it, the heart is coming up, but the heart never goes up to its maximum. So I'm actually getting a maximum effort without pushing my heart rate too high, and that's what I want to do. I'm really preserving my heart and trying to utilize different energy systems. And in the end, and then I get a full rest, completely full rest until I'm ready, and I know that I can do that effort again the next time. I don't even count how long that rest is. I just know. It's like, oh, I can do it again now. I couldn't have done it again 10 seconds ago, but now I know I can do it. And so I try and at least do about 7. The least I would do is 5. The most I would maybe do is 10. But 7 seems to be the magic number. And by the time I'm through with that workout, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do another sprint. But it's such a short, that may be a 30-minute workout only. So it means that actually I could probably do it again the next day without carrying too much stress load. I tend to do those about every other day. But it's a way to actually maximize your energy, consumption, stressing your muscles for performance, but not pushing your cardiovascular system too hard, like your heart. You really, what I don't want to do is stress my heart. So I want to keep a healthy heart. I want to always feel good. I don't want to be too fatigued or stressed. And I always want to be ready to do that workout again. Have the energy to do the workout again. So that's basically what I'm doing at the high end. So I'm doing really long, slow workouts or body weight exercises or practice, or I'm doing these super high effort training, and everything else in between doesn't happen.
And it seems like nutritionally your body is so efficient, you don't really even need to think too much about what you eat before, after, all these things. You just listen to the signals that your body is sending you.
Exactly. In fact, I could probably do this on a full. I could continue my workout load if I were to do a full, like if I did like a 3-day fast, I could still do my workouts during those times. So that's kind of where I want to be.
So having that access to the energy reserves, that's very beneficial. For racing, for training, just for general life work.
And in fact, there's the positive side effects is that you never get into this fatigue slump. So my attitude's always good. My job and my family life doesn't really feel the effects of it. I'm not angry or over fatigued or things like that. So I've been able to find this balance, but it's kind of hard getting there. It's a kind of a tough road to learn your body. Not everybody's the same. I kind of have a long history of kind of aerobic workout, and so it's easy for me to kind of gauge how I feel and where I should or shouldn't be. So though I don't perform like I used to in the past, I have my small micro performances. So if there was a time where all of a sudden it's like, hey Rick, we're going to go do this challenge or something, it's like, well, I'm fit enough just to do it. I don't have to train for it. But so I do periodic performances that I'm always ready for, but then I have a long period of recovery after that. I don't want to continue like I did in the past, where I would have races every weekend or 2 races a week, to where you all of a sudden that fatigue line is going up so high, it's like, oh, now it's getting too high, I have to bring it down a little bit. It's like, I don't even want it in the down a little bit. I want my fatigue at the bottom. I found it to be really a much better way of living, to where I have a good home life, family life. I have a good workout life, you know, I can go ride with fast guys if I want to one day, and then I treat that as a performance, not training. It's like, okay, I'm going to go with this group of riders. I know they're going to go fast.
Yeah.
I want to go fast with them. Yeah. I'm going to do that, but that's totally a competition event for me, which then after that I'll have to recover from and kind of get back onto my program again. But I would not do that again the weekend after, or the weekend after, the weekend after.
Yeah, so it sounds like this approach is very lifestyle. I mean, because you're thinking about what you eat, what your family eat, how you organize your home so that you have access to nutritious food and not too much maybe temptation or things like that, or things that are too easily accessed. But it sounds like there are probably other lifestyle factors that all play into your peak performance state that you can maintain. So are there any other practices that you feel that is helpful, that are important in your daily routine?
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of touched on it before about the walking. And through an old friend of mine, I kind of discovered, I'm not sure if you know her, Esther Gokali. She's kind of in Silicon Valley, and she's this kind of posture expert and walking. She's created what's called primal walking.
Oh, okay.
And it's about posture and how we as humans, modern humans, have lost our ancestral way of doing our work and walking and associating with each other and standing. And so I'm working a lot on posture and proper walking.
Wow. Okay.
And along with breathing exercises, breath work is very important.
Yes.
So the combination of walking and breath work for me and concentrating on this kind of new way of walking. For me, it's been a lot of enjoyment for me to do this, because it's super peaceful, and I find a good place to walk. And I've been doing this for a few years now, to where I'll just decide I'm going to walk to work. I might have to leave an hour early, but it's this great event, because it's that low, slow burning energy that you're utilizing, and it's probably one of the best exercises you can do overall. If there's anything you can pick that I would do, I would do walking. If I add anything else onto that, if I had the second choice, I would do body weight exercises. And I could live on that alone. And as you know, we both do TRX, so that's something that's a component that's also really important for me. And what I like about it, in the past I have done, there have been periods in my life where I've kind of been a gym goer, where I've gone and tried to add more muscle weight, doing low repetitions, high weight, and eating a lot of high protein foods. But it's kind of short-lived. It takes a lot of work for something that's not terribly functional. Though I know it's still, skeletal muscle building and weight bearing is all still very good for you. But there are other ways to go about it that I think are healthier. And I think TRX is nice because it's so adaptable, and because you can do so many movements on it. And the movements take some coordination, so it means that you have to be able to balance, and you learn about different angles of how your muscles work. So that coordination is so natural skill that you have to learn. It's really difficult at first, but then eventually it's like, wow, this is great. And you can do the same exercise, change the angle by 3 degrees, and it's completely different. And so it's kind of an amazing type thing. And you can take it outside, you can use it inside, you can show your kids something fun to do on it. So just probably those two things I could, do, and I will do for the rest of my life.
So walking, body weight exercises, maybe with the aid of TRX. And you mentioned breath work. So what do you do for breath work?
Pretty simple, really. It's very meditative. I have to be in an environment that is quiet, and maybe some light music, not too warm, a little bit cool. And really, I just do what I call a square breathing, to where your inhales and your exhales are kind of the same timing.
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes you concentrate on your breathing, and I work on my posture at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
When I inhale, I tend to inhale through my nose. Nose breathing is very important to me, not only during these exercises, but also when I exercise on my bike or TRX. Nose breathing is
yes.
as you know, does help you physiologically.
Yes.
So really simple, and of course, when I try not to think about problems during that time, so I meditate about good things, about the good things in my life. Meditation is a lot like praying. It's a good time to pray for your family, think about your children, and good, all the positive thoughts of things that bring joy into your life. So it's good for your body, it's good for your brain, it's good for your emotional health. And so I try to do breath work at least once, if not twice a day.
Okay, very good.
It should be more, but of course.
Time is always better, yes. Yeah, that sounds very holistic approach to how do you look at your fitness performance, and not just physical performance, but emotional, mental resilience, psychological health, and all that. Yeah,
and everything I do doesn't cost anything.
That's right.
And what I do then is whatever I have to spend, I spend on things like quality food, quality information. So if that has to do with books, seminars on positive health, things like that, then I have this money to spend on just more knowledge and better nutrition. Yeah. So luckily I work in the bike industry, so I rarely ever have to spend money on anything related to a bicycle. So, and my TRX, I bought it used probably 6 or 7 years ago at least. And it doesn't wear out.
Yeah, that's right.
I've traveled with it around the world. Yeah. The only problem I've ever had is I was in a Chinese dorm room where the doors were pretty cheap. Yeah. I pretty much pulled the door off its hinges. But other than that, I work out wherever I go. Yeah. And I also have a travel bicycle that I can put in a case that will go on the airplane.
That's right.
Just about everywhere I go, I do travel a lot with my work. So I can do everything I do at home, I can do on the road. And I tend to try not to eat out too much when I'm on the road. I will actually find a grocery store and get the select foods that I know I want to eat, and I'll cook a lot of it in the hotel cook pot, water pot.
That's pretty genius.
Eat foods raw. Also, when I travel, often I try to take public transportation as much as possible. So I will ride a U-bike to the bus, to the train, to the high-speed rail. So all of that stuff, and then I'm outdoors, I'm getting good sunlight, I'm getting fresh air, I'm not stressed, I'm getting my exercise. And so I have no excuse, really. So I don't have to come home from a travel trip saying, oh, I'm so far behind, and I ate all this bad food. That doesn't happen to me.
Or you feel like you work all day, you gotta get your workout in, but in fact your travel to work is already your exercise, right? Things like that.
And also at work, my breaks, I do walking. So that's where I'm a big iWatch fan, that I have goals every day that I have to reach, and I have to do it in my work clothes as well. So when everyone's taking a nap at their desk, I'm actually out doing a walk during my work break time, and I come back really refreshed. I try and sleep at night. Naps I know are good periodically, but I don't always like to take naps at work.
That's a wealth of information covering so many topics. I'm sure we can dive deep into every single one of them, but maybe for today, just to share with everybody, this is a great place. But also in the future, we are planning on doing some workshop together, and hopefully we can get our space, get our time nailed down. We can do a day-long workshop or seminar, and we'll be open to people live in person.
No, that would be great. Of course.
So we'll let everybody know when that is going to be, when it's going to happen. And Taiwan things are operating kind of normally right now.
Most considering what's going on in the world.
Yeah. So
Taiwan's good.
No closures. Hopefully we won't have any more closures. So anything else that you can think of that will be good tips for people that are looking for, maybe especially for people that are interested in endurance sports, cycling, triathlon, running, any other good tips that you can think of that would be very, very helpful?
Well, again, I think I started with that it's always quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And so it's the quality of the workout, the quality of the rest, the quality of the nutrition. Not the quantity, not how much you're training. So those are kind of the key points that I would really go for. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, hope that you were able to get some good tips in the things that we talked about today, and I'm sure we'll be able to have Rick back in the future, and as he learned different things, and maybe we can dive into some of these topics with even greater detail.